It is Ryan Seacrest here. There was a recent social media trend which consisted of flying on a plane with no music, no movies, no entertainment. But a better trend would be going to ChumbaCasino.com. It's like having a mini social casino in your pocket. Chumba Casino has over 100 online casino-style games, all absolutely free. It's the most fun you can have online and on a plane. So grab your free welcome bonus now at ChumbaCasino.com. Sponsored by Chumba Casino.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 17th episode of Crime Over Wine, the only podcast with head-scratching true crime stories that are just better over a bottle of wine. I'm your host, Liam Collins, and this week my guest co-host is a longtime friend, fellow New Yorker, and also another one of my high school prom dates. My guest co-host this week is Kira Breslin. Hello, Kira. How are you doing?
Hello, honey. I'm good. How are you? It's so funny that you reference it. We went to prom together because one of the ones I listened to earlier was it Alex who also went to prom with you? I was like, oh, yeah, she got the jump on me, but so happy to be here.
Listen, I'm doing my little prom rounds. By the end of this podcast, I'm gonna have every single one of my prom dates on there. And I won't say how many. I won't say how many there are. But just I had a really fun time in high school. You know what I mean?
As you should, literally.
Right. Exactly. The glory days. The glory days when we all peaked. Right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So Kira and I first met back at Carmel High School in Carmel, New York. And Kira, I have to say, I was racking my brain to remember how we met. And then it finally hit me, Kira. Do you remember?
It just as being weird on Twitter.
Yes. We used to roast each other exclusively on Twitter before we ever even met each other.
Right.
Then it just felt like we went to high school together. And then just casually decided that we were just going to be besties in school too. And now look at us drinking wine, talking about crime together.
No, I love that for us. I think we thought we were so funny and we were probably just so odd. I can't.
Somebody on the internet is going to go back and find those tweets and just absolutely ruin our lives for sure.
Oh my gosh. I probably shouldn't even say this, but I definitely still have the same Twitter account. I've had that account for so long. Maybe it's time to change now that I'm thinking about it. Get a new one.
I think I have my little Sunday night activity. So
great.
So, Kira, I think we were just talking about this, how excited we are to just chit chat and drink a glass of wine together because obviously wink wink nudge nudge, we couldn't really do that in high school, haha.
Right.
So why do we say we move on to this part?
Sounds good. I am so thrilled. This bottle's been chilling all day. I'm so excited.
Yeah. So this week we are drinking Conundrum's white blend. It's a blend of Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon, and Viognier. It brings the scents of apricot, pear, and honeysuckle, and notes of orange, lemon, meringue, and oak. So what do we say? Crack this bad boy open.
I can't wait.
Oh my gosh, me neither. I'm already going for it.
Do it, yeah. I'm so excited. Right. I love white wine, but I usually just get a Pinot Grigio. I never get a white blend, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie, Kira. I don't even really think I knew that white blends existed. I'm sure, not that I didn't think that they didn't exist, but I definitely didn't think that they did. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's such a bizarre experience, but I saw that and I was ooh, I did a red blend a couple weeks ago, and so now I'm back on with white blends, and so
stunning.
We're just doing a whole blend. Yeah, we're just doing the whole thing. So cheers to you, Kira.
Cheers, honey. Thanks for having me.
Ooh.
Oh, that's really delightful.
It is very delightful. Wait, I'm trying to pick out the remember what scents or flavors we're talking about here. Okay, orange, lemon, meringue. I definitely get orange, lemon, meringue for sure. But
I get the citrus.
That's white wine 101. Yeah, the citrusy flavors are definitely there for sure. And I feel if I had to, because I definitely get the the oaky Chardonnay, I definitely get that too. I'm trying to pick out what one type of wine really sticks out here. So I have Chardonnay, Sauvignon Blanc, Semillon, and Viognier. What's your guess? What do you really taste?
I want to say the Chardonnay because it's a little buttery, a little oaky.
That's where I was going to. Yeah, I get that strong. Ooh, that strong buttery Chardonnay. flavors for sure, and that's really where that's what I'm really picking apart here for sure.
Delicious. I guess I love a white blend. That's so good to know.
Yeah. Who knew? Who knew? See, the things you learn on Crime Over Wine.
Right. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
We're only right at the beginning. Perfect.
Right. So, Kira, what do you say we move on to this story? Because I know you have a lot of thoughts. I have a lot of thoughts. Let's just go there.
Let's do it.
So, I know you're so excited to talk about this, Kira, and I am too, because this is one of the most perplexing situations that I have ever heard of before. And I say situations very ideally here instead of cases, because there is technically no real investigation opened into this person who hasn't been seen by her closest friends and family in more than 15 years. This week, I'm going to tell you the story of Shelly Miscavige, the Scientologist's wife. So to understand this story, Kira, we first need to go back to the beginnings of Scientology itself. Scientology was first founded by L. Ron Hubbard in 1953. Ron originally founded a belief system called Dianetics, which basically stemmed from his fascination with anxiety and nervous tensions, and also a little bit of extraterrestrial activity. He even wrote a book on his belief system and what he was able to learn throughout his life about how people's psychological state can affect their lives, lifestyles, and life choices. The book, Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health, is largely looked at as the iteration of Ron's mind. It's described as Ron's science fiction fantasies and a self-help book. It argues that the majority of human ailments, both physical and mental, are psychosomatic, almost meaning that someone's external issues are brought onto them by themselves. Kira, I'm hoping you can read the description of the book for us. These are the questions that Ron says you'll be able to answer and the problems you'll be able to solve using the foundations of Dianetics.
Okay, absolutely. So why do we give up on our dreams? What is the real cause of depression? Is there a cure for stress? How do you reach your full potential? Why do we hurt the ones we love? Why are some people prone to illness? How can you improve your mental health? Can you conquer your fears? I mean, I think these seem like questions that most people would want to know the answer to.
Yeah, right. Well, and also, this is the third episode, right, that I've done that's kind of culty, adjacent kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I'm I think about where all these things come from, and I'm okay, these are, like you said, very normal problems.
Right.
And I'm these, I guess I see the draw, right? Exactly. And it's okay, if your cult is saying yeah, you're going to be able to figure out how to cure your stress and figure out how what the if you're going to be able to conquer your fears, I'm going to be okay, sure, sign me up.
Sounds good.
You don't really know what, you don't know where you're getting yourself into. So
right.
It's so crazy, the foundations that these people set up for themselves.
Exactly. Like you said, I can see how people would get drawn in. It's scary.
So easy.
Yeah,
so scary. Yeah. So the philosophy uses some pretty bizarre methods to achieve its goals. Hubbard preaches this religion using unconventional scientific methods to prove its ideology. They're known to use some experiments, most of which are proven to be incorrect and to be ripe with confirmation bias. Their goal is to prove that there are three sections of the mind. The analytical mind uses rational decision making. The reactive mind holds memories, and the somatic minds use the other parts to take action. Obviously, the brain is far much more complex than this, but Dianetics basically says that a painful experience can poison one part of the brain and therefore affect the other two and affect someone's decision making. So that person should go through an auditing process, that's what they call it, which is where they can isolate the painful experience and clear those painful experiences from their mind.
I mean, the use of the term auditing in terms of a person's brain definitely gives me pause. Interesting. It's such an oversimplification of how a person's brain works. So, yeah.
And you know what I'm thinking too, just based on what we were just talking about too, when I think about also these culty kind of, religio, situations, right? a lot of these things that people are describing, like, I feel like are like so targeting like the most vulnerable people.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the people who like maybe did have that like really traumatic experience growing up and have spent their entire lives trying to figure out how can they audit it out of their brain?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so now they're like, here's somebody who may have the answers, and then like God knows what happens to you after that.
Right, exactly. It's like we were saying earlier, someone will see this and say, oh, that sounds great. I would love to.
Yeah. Right. Oh, I got some traumas.
Yeah.
You want to help me out, Ron?
Right. Right.
So this was the basis of Ron's book, which parlays into the origins of Scientology. The book is referred to be as a book one of Scientology. Ron founded Scientology in 1953, 1954, essentially transferring the foundation that he established through Dianetics into a full-fledged religion. The religion preaches that humans are immortal beings with experiences that extend far beyond a lifetime. The church also connects their belief systems to some extraterrestrial life too, like aliens. So one of the more major tenets of the religion is that a human is no more than what they call a thetan, an immortal alien spiritual being that is trapped on Earth. The church teaches its members that their way of living can help them to achieve greater spiritual awareness.
Interesting. You know, I feel like this is where it kind of takes a funky turn.
Funky, alien-y. We're all aliens, basically, is what Ron's saying.
And also, to go back to like the first bit of what you said 1953 or 54. I don't know why I assumed Scientology was so much older than that. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, yeah, it's been around for like less than 100
right.
years. Yeah, that's a good point. And I guess it's more because like some of the beliefs are kind of like old, so maybe that's kind of what
exactly. Yeah, I agree with you.
Well, by the late 1960s, the religion was really picking up steam and became this spiritual mecca of sorts for a range of high-profile people, everyone from politicians to athletes to actors. But in 1986, Ron died, leaving a massive power vacuum within the church, and a new leader took it over, one who many looking from the outside in would see as an extremely dangerous figure. David Miscavige took the reins as the leader of the Church of Scientology at the age of 26, but he had been a powerful figure within the religion much before that. At 21, he was reported to have led a massive purge of rogue church members, people who were thought to be beginning a silent revolt and questioning the church's practices. David really wanted to realign the church's priorities to focus on recruiting very high-profile members after he took it over, and he was pretty successful at it. Today, most well-known members are John Travolta, Ann Archer, Kirstie Alley, Tom Cruise, Katie Holmes, and also Leah Remini. David reportedly really leaned into these influential figures in order to raise the church's status, and he really depended on their name recognition, power, and money. Janet Reitman wrote for her book Inside Scientology that these celebrity figures are treated like the kings and queens of Scientology. By the 90s, the church's membership grew to about 8 million people, and he was the prime leader of them all. The Tampa Bay Times said it best back in 1998. They said he was to Scientologists as the Pope was to Catholics.
Very interesting. I was going to ask, these famous people that are infamously part of Scientology, like Kirstie Alley and Tom Cruise, what attracted them to it? I know you mentioned that, they maybe support it financially, things like that, but I would be so curious as to know what kind of is in it for them.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think that, because I thought about this too, and, I look at these people and, I think of like Kirstie Alley sticks out to me, which like we obviously like in 2023 kind of know like how the whole how that whole worked out. But like, I also like, I think about these people who like, maybe because like, as like, this is going to sound so weird, but like, you hear all the time about how like lonely it is to be famous, you know what I mean? And so like, I almost wonder if it like does feel a little bit better maybe to have like people kind of want you, like this kind of influence and like, community almost a little bit. And so, yeah, like maybe it does, like they must have appealed to something along those lines, I feel
right.
like.
That's a good point. I mean, it's such a universal human feeling to want to be part of something. Yeah. I guess that's a good point. Yeah. I guess, being rich and famous doesn't change that, evidently. Yeah, that's a good point.
And also, too, so, like, you know, this Tampa Bay Times quote, like, he is to Scientologists as the Pope is to Catholics, like, that, like, when I read that, I was like, wait, what? Because, like, literally, I was like, listen, I'm not, like, the best Catholic in the world, but, like, the Pope is supposed to be, like the vessel of God, right, to the church, right? So it's like, oh, like is that really how we're like looking at this? Like that just feels weird.
So interesting. Another thing too is that you said there was like 8 million members of the church. That feels like a ton.
Oh, so many people, right?
I don't know, I personally don't know how many members there are of different churches, but 8 million feels huge.
Well, and like that's like literally the size of New York City, and I'm like,
right,
wait.
yeah.
Well, also too, so it's like needed to be mentioned too. Like Kirstie Alley is dead, right? And but like she like from what I kind of gather from this, like I think she's still considered a member of the church. So I almost wonder if maybe that is like, you know, including all these like all people who have died or, you know, have tried to leave the church, that kind of thing. So yeah, so it's like I like almost think of like not to conflate the two at all, but like Mormonism, like you don't go to church anymore, but like your name is still on the rolls and stuff. And
that's interesting. Yeah.
So like that, I don't know, but I did see that. I was like, wait a minute, like you're like, I don't know how many people are in like America, but like I would imagine that's probably like one in every like 10 people, like, you know, is a Scientologist. Like,
yeah, crazy.
Yeah,
crazy. I would have never guessed that.
Yeah, so I would have guessed a couple thousand. Like,
I literally would have thought like 500,000 people maybe, like something like that.
Yeah, so the church had really laid its claim by this point and had open branches across the country, most notably setting up shop in Southern California and Clearwater, Florida. But the local politicians and government leaders where Scientology had planted roots were really wary of some of the rumblings of what the church was rumored to take part in. Not only questionable experiments like we mentioned, but also reports of abuse and potential indentured servitude. And at this point, the church had achieved a tax-free status from the IRS too. So some local mayors and law enforcement officials start to push back against the church, leading to some pretty public clashes. There were also these bizarre rumors, specifically in Clearwater, of a potential murder that took place on the church's compound. The alleged victim's name was Lisa McPherson, and there is like a whole lot to unwrap here. Like, it is its own podcast. We're not even going to go there, but basically, to sum it up, the woman was a Scientology member, and after a car accident, she was admitted for psychological evaluation where her mental state declined significantly. A doctor who came to see her insisted 100% she needed to go to the hospital, but a Scientology leader supposedly refused. They eventually did take her to a hospital almost an hour away, but she died before she even got there. The medical examiner originally reported that Lisa was a victim of negligent homicide, and a grand jury actually indicted the church on felony charges. But later, the medical examiner changed her cause of death from undetermined to an accident, and the charges against the church were dropped.
Crazy. That is insane. That's such a sad story about this woman, Lisa.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, like, you talked about, like, you know, the mayors and things, like, clashing with the church. Like, you hear about that all the time, like, but murder and indentured servitude is a little more serious than just, you know, disagreeing with what a church has to say.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah, and we didn't even scratch the surface there,
right?
You know, as you very much so are aware. But there are so many stories that I found about this that I'm gonna tell you about, Kira. So like, you know, have your bottle handy, and like also probably another bottle because you're probably gonna need it.
Oh, absolutely. I already refilled. Like,
okay, good. Yeah, and it's just like, I don't really. It just feels weird, and like they deny this whole thing, right? Of course, like they deny, like we try to get to a hospital right away, but it's also like, okay, like why don't you live within an hour of a hospital? Like, I have questions.
Right.
So, yeah.
A lot of questions.
Yeah, me too. Well, Kira, you know the saying, behind every strong man is a woman. And in this case, that woman is Shelly Miscavige. She's David's wife. The two got married in 1982. David was 22, Shelly was 21. But she wasn't a stranger to the church at all when she first met David. In fact, she grew up around it. Her mother was a well-known member of the church too, but not because she was the supreme leader or influential figure, but because she was one of the church's most well-known defectors. Mary Florence Barnett, or Flo, was a longtime Scientologist. She grew up around the religion and was a really active member. But as Ron neared the end of his life and it became clear that David was going to be the one to take over, Flo started resisting against the idea of David's leadership. She resigned from the church as this form of kind of silent protest against David taking the reins of the church, and on her way out had apparently taken some confidential upper-level materials, and as I'm sure you can imagine, they didn't like that very much. On September 8th, 1985, Flo was found dead in Los Angeles from 4 gunshot wounds from what looked to be a rifle or at least some sort of long gun. There were 3 wounds to her chest. One was just a surface wound, the other traveled through a breast implant, and the third traveled through her left lung and fractured a rib. The last and fatal wound, though, was directly to her head.
I mean, this is only getting crazier, Liam. I mean, I am anxious to find out how this ends because, as the previous story, it, was ruled accidental and everyone moved on with their lives, which is just so suspicious on so many fronts. So I'm scared to hear what else you have to say.
Well, let's get there then, Kira. Let me just end your anxiety. So the medical examiner's office and police officers did call it an extremely unusual death, but did end up ruling it a suicide. But later on, detractors raised some concerns with David about Flo's suspicious death. Some of them later testified in a massive court proceeding against the church's practices that stemmed from a 1991 Time magazine investigation against the church, that when they had asked David about Flo's death, he had supposedly said, quote, "The bitch got what she deserved."
I mean, if you're not even going to be subtle about it, that's insane. The bitch got what she deserved. Like,
yeah.
If you want to, not subtle at all. If you, I can't. That's insane.
Yeah, and right, and so and we go through the whole anatomy of this homicide, through and through, and I feel like we could probably do again whole different podcasts on just Mary in and of itself. But I'm like, right. Okay, suicide, so we're talking about a long gun, and I think about shooting myself. I am literally talking about this when my episode of Ellen Greenberg came out. Just episode 9 just came out a couple weeks ago, as of this recording. And so in that case, she stabbed herself 20 times. You're telling me, so one wound, superficial, sure, okay. 3 wounds, you're telling me that she inflicted on herself?
Right. The logistics of it.
No, and with a long, she's an older, I don't want to say she's, I'm thinking that she is, at this point, I think, so she's 21 when this all happens, Shelly meaning, and then, assuming that, Mary had to have been 40 at least to make that make sense.
Right.
So I'm there's no freaking way
that
someone, a 40-year-old woman is going to be able to take this rifle, shoot herself 3 times,
right.
I just don't, I'm not buying that at all.
No, I'm not buying it either, in the least.
Man, and it's okay, how many people have to kind of die around this church before we're maybe they're a bunch of murderers, just thought.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, and for him to not even be so hush-hush about it is just crazy.
Yeah. Well, so to be clear, David denied ever saying that bizarre quote and called his mother-in-law's death a family tragedy. And that obviously did not deter Shelly's involvement in the church at all. She became a very active member and continued to be so after that. When David became Scientology's reigning leader, she became known as not only this first lady figure in Scientology, smiling and always at David's side during public appearances, but she also became an influential member in her own right. She was David's top aide, seeing just about everything he was seeing, knowing just about everything he was knowing. Going through the 90s, the couple was like the Brad and Angelina of Scientology. They ran operations and also became chief fundraisers for the church. But as the 2000s rolled in, Shelly was reportedly becoming a bit suspicious of her husband, according to former senior members of the church. But at the same time, she appeared to become really tired of being being just like this trophy wife, more or less, a figure of the church with no real authority beyond what her husband had allowed of her. She had reportedly slowly taken some of that control back. She had apparently used her authority as top aide of the church to fill several job vacancies without her husband's permission.
Interesting. I mean, it's sad to me that it took her so long after what happened to her mother to become so suspicious.
Yeah.
Of what was going on. That's so upsetting. Like the hold that the church and her husband had on her, you know?
Yeah. And you know, my like other thought too here is, so like, I wonder like if David like told Shelly like, yeah, like, you know, like what did he really tell her about kind of how her mother really died? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Did she just think what everyone else thought about this whole situation, that she killed herself, or like, did she know a little bit more about the whole situation? Maybe that's what she was getting in on. You know what I mean?
Right. That's so true. Maybe she didn't even know. I mean, we just got the details of what actually happened. Maybe she had no idea, like you said. Or maybe she was behind it. Who knows? That it's just crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, yeah. Like none of this really makes any sort of sense. Like, you know, I really feel like this is like one of those stories I'm like, okay, like you can probably like look at this and really probably like twist it and turn it and like in whichever way you want to. And like, like I feel like you can make it make perfect sense in your mind. And like, I'd be like, okay, you know.
Exactly. It's crazy. You just don't know.
But point being, you know, I think at this point, like, there's a little bit of, like, rebellion going on, like, you know, go girl. I don't, and, like, I also wonder, too, like, how much of, like, internally, like, was that just the way that, you know, women were looked upon? You know what I mean? That makes me wonder, too, like, or maybe it was just, like, more higher ups. Maybe it was just her because she was, like, the leader's wife. You know what I mean? Or, you know, or maybe it was just because he was this controlling, you know, jerk, or, you know, so it really could have, you know, I don't know, it makes me think about like what goes on within the church and like what are the power dynamics, what are the gender roles, you know?
Right. I mean, that could have been such the norm, or like you said, it could have been just her. Who knows? Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, you say who knows, like we don't know. We probably will never know.
We'll never know.
To be in there until we join Scientology and we like take it down from the inside. What do you say, Kira?
I mean, I support it. I am mad already at this whole story. I'm with it. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. So in June of 2006, Shelly and David go on a short trip aboard the Free Winds, which is basically this cruise ship exclusively for Scientology members. And it's sort of this bizarre asset for the church. Kira, I'm hoping that you're able to read the description that the church gives of the boat on its website.
Definitely. The Free Winds is a religious retreat that marks for Scientologists the pinnacle of their journey to total spiritual freedom. Its position at sea is designed to provide an aesthetic, distraction-free environment off the crossroads of everyday life. As a center of spiritual enlightenment, it is a place where lives are transformed. Kind of sounds fabulous, honestly.
Let's go. I mean, cruise ship where lives are transformed. Like, okay, like
right. I'm with it.
It just gets weirder and weirder and weirder.
Yes,
like, you know, as it goes down. Because I'm like, oh, like, you know, pinnacle of their journey to total spiritual free. Oh, okay, like that's interesting. Like, its position at sea is to provide an aesthetic, distraction-free environment. Okay, cool. And it's like it's at the center of spiritual enlightenment. Right. It's a place where lives.
It's like I'm envisioning like a Carnival cruise ship where everyone's just like with the drink package at the pool, like.
Yeah, right. So I guess I'm wondering like what like I don't know like what goes on out there. You know what I mean? Where like you know, what do you, and what do you expect when you get on the boat? Like those are my questions that I have on that front.
Right. I would also be so curious to know how big it is. Like what kind of ship are we talking? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. Actually, I've seen pictures of it. You want me to show you?
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome. Oh, I see. Yeah, it's like a small cruise ship.
I'm seeing like, you know, very normal cruise ship things. You know what I mean? Where it's like there's like little, there's a little pool in the background. There are like these like you know games. I'm like, okay, like, what is going on here? Like, what, like, why do you look like a normal cruise ship from the outside, but on the inside, you're this, like, place where your life is transformed? Like, the only thing that I think about...
Right, like, what do you got going on?
Yeah, right. It's like, okay, this pool cannot be that cool. You know what I mean? It's like, so, like, what's going on the inside? I need to know.
I absolutely need to know.
So I do think, again, I go back to, I think the only way that we're going to find out is if we join Scientology. So,
yeah. I mean, this kind of solidifies it.
Yeah, if anyone's listening, I am interested. Thank you.
Yeah, forget everything I've said so far.
Honestly, just like get rid of this episode.
Yeah.
So the Free Winds is kind of this like shadowy place, though. It's reportedly this place that Scientologists use to go between national and international laws. They go out onto this boat into international water so they can basically do like whatever they want and however they want without any clear jurisdiction on who may be able to hold them responsible for their actions. In 2011, as reported by CNN, a woman said she went aboard the boat for what she thought was a 2-week vacation, but it turned out to be a 12-year-long trip of indentured servitude where she served Scientologists for next to no pay. And children were apparently used as labor too, but we'll get there toward the end of this episode.
I mean, I just don't think there's enough white blends in the world to wrap your head around this.
Yeah, I like really want to know how that vacation turned into this like 12-year thing. Like the boat had to have docked at some point, and I guess I'm wondering like how nobody was like, oh, like you've been here for a long time, you know what I mean? Like,
right. And like, was no one looking for this woman? You know, like friends, family are like, oh, she left on a trip a decade ago. Where the heck is she? You know? Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah. So, yeah, that's such a weird thing. This is such a weird thing for me. I don't even really know what to make of all that. But, like, real lawsuit, real thing that they're accusing. So,
my goodness. Yeah. My goodness.
When David and Shelly returned from their trip aboard the Free Winds, she was said to have visibly changed her mood and looked, quote, demurred. A former spokesperson for the church said that Shelly had apparently asked if her husband was still wearing his wedding ring.
I mean, wedding ring aside, you know, what, like we're just saying, what goes down on this ship? You know, she comes back. She comes back. Yeah. She comes back with a new mood, new demeanor. Like, what happened?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to know what happened on that boat, too. And, like, luckily she was able to come off it to begin with because she could have been there for 12 years.
Right.
So, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, like, clear, you know, change in demeanor. And, like, this is all kind of, like, rumory, like, secondhand stuff kind of thing. Because, like, as you know, like Shelly doesn't tell us anything about this.
Right.
And so, like, I am really, I just have a lot of questions for that. And also, too, it should be noted, it should be disclosed here, like, this former spokesperson for the church, like, has a book, like, railing against the church. Like, he's, like, a very vocal person, like, you know, railing against, like, the foundations of the church. So, like, I kind of take, like, a little bit of grain of salt here, but, like, that, like, you know, statement has, like, you know, really, you know, has been reported and shared enough, I guess, that I feel comfortable sharing it here.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. And I think another thing, too, like, we were talking about how she had kind of started to rebel a little bit. I wonder if, you know, ever since mentioning that woman who became an indentured servant, I wonder if she went on the ship and, like, kind of really started to see Scientology for what it really was, you know?
Yeah, that's possible. And maybe, you know what, because if they're talking about like, too, like where my mind just went is like, okay, if this is supposed to be like some sort of like life-changing experience, like maybe like all these things about like her starting to question things, like maybe this was their way of like, you know, jamming it back into her, you know what I mean? Of like, you know, going on this boat and like, you know, trying to like, you know, brainwash her, you know what I mean? And, you know, for lack of better words, you know, into going back into this, and it clearly didn't work.
Right.
Maybe it worked too well. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Or, I mean, or like you said, like maybe it really opened her eyes. Like, I mean, clearly these people don't really like have, you know, like realize like how bad of the things that they're doing. You know what I mean? So it's like, maybe that they're just like, yeah, like we'll just come along, like, you know, see like how great it is. But like really she sees this and it's like, what the heck? And it's like, also, weren't you here 6 years ago when I came on? Like, weren't you like, didn't I sit next to you at the pool. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, right. Like, what's going on here?
Just a few months later was the event of the century for Scientologists. And this, Kira, as you know, is where things really start to take a turn. All right, Kira, how is your conundrum going down? Is it everything you ever dreamed of?
It really is. It is, like I said before, I love white wine. I think a crisp glass of white wine at the end of the day is maybe one of the most stunning things ever. And this one is so good. It's so refreshing. It's so smooth. Yeah. It's you've opened my eyes. I'm going to have to try, more white blends I've never had that I remember.
And I think, the more I drink it, the more I'm like, focusing really in on those flavors. Like I've said on this podcast so many times, it's like, I really am starting to taste that oak. I'm really starting to taste, like you said, like it's getting smoother as they go down. And so I think that's really interesting. And yeah, I didn't really, talk about, the, smooth versus tanniny, like the smoothness of this is on point. Like it almost, because episode 9 we drank Foga's Pinot Grigio, and that was like drinking water,
right?
And so I'm like, yeah, and so like it with like a little bit of kick to it, you know what I mean? And so like, but like in terms of smoothness, like this kind of like is as close to that as I have gotten so far.
Right. It is just so good. I couldn't agree more. And I know people like red in like the cold weather and like rosé in the summer. I think you could drink this all year. I think this would be pleasant anytime.
Yeah.
Like I see myself drinking this outside in the summer. I could also like be next to the fire drinking it. It's just so good.
Yeah, I agree there. And I'm definitely with you there. I like, as everyone knows from this podcast, like I am a red drinker through and through. Like I reserve my whites and my rosés for the summer. I'm that girl.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Like,
yeah.
I also, the weather's getting a little bit warmer and I could see myself, sitting out on a little porch.
Yeah.
Drinking a little conundrum.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, now that you helped me find where they sell it in Albany, which is a huge place, obviously. So I don't know why I didn't look there first. I'll definitely have to check out more of them. Like, so good.
Well, what do you say we get back to Shelly because things are about to get crazy?
Let's do it. Who knew they could get crazier?
Oh, it sure can. So in November of 2006, our like lovely Hollywood couple, Tom Cruise and Katie Holmes, tie the knot together. David, who is evidently like the best of friends with Tom Cruise, is even the best man at the wedding. The wedding represents the union of true Scientology royalty, literally taking place at a 15th century castle in the mountains of Italy. It is what you would imagine as this extravagant wedding, but most of all, anyone who's anyone in Scientology and also in Hollywood is there, except for one person, and that is Shelly Miscavige. Leah Remini, who is best known for her supporting role on King of Queens, said in her documentary and in her book Troublemaker that she asked multiple different people, casually, nothing probing about, where Shelly was. Totally normal question. You don't see your friend at a wedding. You're like, where is she?
Right.
To which she said they had reportedly replied, quote, "You don't have the fucking rank to ask about Shelly."
I mean, pardon me? I feel like that's an extremely innocent question.
Yeah.
Especially if her husband is the best man. And I don't know if you could remind me. So this is in 2006. And when was the cruise that they went on?
So that was in June of 2006. This is November of 2006.
Same year.
Yeah. So just a couple months later. And so, yeah. And so it's just like, and I don't really think that they're like best, like Shelly and Leah are best of friends by any means.
Right.
But like they certainly know each other. You know what I mean? Like she's high up in Scientology.
Right.
So is Leah. And so it's this kind of like natural thing to be like, okay, well, David is there and but Shelly isn't. Like, why is that?
Right. I mean, I feel like that would be a natural question, even if someone wasn't close with the couple. This guy is the best man, and his wife is not at the wedding at all.
Yeah, and it also kind of, I don't know. And at this point, like, you can tell, like, just based on the kind of how Leah describes this whole thing, like, maybe, like, she was trying to, like, starting to side-eye things a little bit in the church kind of situation. So, like, maybe they did see this as maybe another one of her prying questions. Sure.
Right.
But I don't know. It feels like a very like weird way to be like, hey, where's your friend? You're like, you don't have the fucking rank to ask about her. Like, oh, okay, sorry.
Right. And it's not like it was accusatory or anything. Asking where someone is, pretty non-combative.
Yeah, no, not at all. Well, obviously, this does not sit well with Leah at all, and she still isn't seeing Shelly make her usual public appearances alongside David. And so Leah continues to ask about Shelly, but there was always some excuse. She was in a meeting, she was on a special project, or was visiting a relative somewhere. Shelly did make one other public appearance in August of 2007 when she was photographed by the press being escorted to her father's funeral. But that was the last time anyone has ever seen Shelly Miscavige in public. Leah says that for the remaining time she was an official Scientology member, she was subject to intense interrogations and thought modification experiments after she would question David's rule and ask about Shelly's whereabouts. By 2013, when she hadn't seen Shelly for herself for 8 years, she decides she is going to leave Scientology, and so she does. But immediately after her successful exit from the church, her very first goal is to find Shelly. I mean, she has tunnel vision. And so in August, she files a missing persons report with the Los Angeles Police Department. Along with it, Leah hands the detective a letter to give to Shelly if they are able to find her safe and sound. And Kira, I'm hoping that you're able to read it for us.
Dear Shelly, it is not normal for you to be so out of communication. It is not normal for you to not be with your husband at the wedding. For years, I have been trying to get confirmation that you were okay. I was met with such resistance that it has caused me enough concern to go to extreme measures to make sure you were in fact okay. My letters were not sent to you, and I was told that I, quote, did not have the fucking rank to ask about Shelly, quote. This is not human. Shelly, this is not right. I don't care what you think you are doing. This is not LRH, and you need to do something about it. You need to go with this gentleman now. I will take care of you. I will give you a home and the protection you need. From there, you can do what you need to do, but you need to leave right now. Do not worry about clothes, money, lawyers, and what this will do. This will all get worked out later. All you need to say to this person who has come to get you is, quote, I want to leave with you now, quote. If you don't do it now, you probably won't have another chance to get out. So I beg you to take this step for you. It is the right thing to do. Leah.
Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts here, Kira, but I want you to go first.
I mean, it's just so sad. You can clearly tell the desperation that she feels. This woman that she was seemingly probably close with and cares about and hasn't seen in years. It's just so devastating. I can't imagine being in her shoes,
Yeah, and it's almost written too like she knows that she's alive somewhere. You know what I mean? And it's
she knows what's up.
Yeah, she knows she feels like she's being held captive somewhere, and I don't even want to say feels it feels like she knows that. You know what I mean? It feels so matter of fact, where it's here's the here's this letter, give it to her, and it's written in a way that's not if this gets to you, if you can hear me, no.
Yeah, if you're in danger.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh. But also, so there was one thing that I need to it racked my brain when I was trying to read about this. So there's that line right in the middle. It says, Shelly, this is not right. I don't care what you think you are doing. This is not LRH. And I was okay, who's LRH? And then I was who's LRH? And then I was that's literally the initials of L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of Scientology. And so I'm okay, hold on. Oh. And I'm my thought went in. So what are your thoughts on that? And I'll tell you my thoughts after.
This is not, see, I breezed right by that, and I meant to ask you, what does that mean? So now I don't care what you think you're doing. This is not LRH. I mean, is she saying, this is not what it was? This is not the Scientology that it's supposed to be?
Maybe. I mean, I read it as this is not Ron, L. Ron Hubbard is not physically writing this letter. This, he's not the person who gave it the letter.
Oh.
So I'm okay, so are we assuming that he's still alive, or do people know inside the church that he's still alive and are just keeping it secret at this point?
Oh, that's so interesting. That didn't even cross my mind. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's the way. I mean, I don't know. I could be wrong. No,
right,
this was never explained.
We'll probably never know.
Yeah, this was never explained, never, from anything I read about this, never probed upon. But I was okay, you're saying that this is not him. like, but he's dead. Like, and so I'm like, I don't, and like, so, and I have so many other thoughts about that. We'll get to that though, all the way at the bottom of the episode, because there's another part of this I need to talk about, and that ties right back into it. But I was just like, whoa.
Right.
I did not understand. He would have been 102 years old.
Okay.
So because he was born in 1911. So he would have been 102 years old in 2013. But the church says that you live forever. So keep that in mind. So, I mean, maybe Leah doesn't know. Maybe Leah know. Like my rationale goes to maybe Leah doesn't know, or knows that Ron is actually dead because she's like come to, but like is trying to say to Shelly, who like maybe still thinks that he may still be alive.
Yeah. Or maybe I mean I realize this might sound so silly. Is it like a thing where they think someone who has, you know, quote unquote past, like would have the capabilities of writing someone a letter, you know? Like, is that part of something they might believe in if they think they're, you know, immortal and things like that?
I mean, it's possible. I mean, if they think they're aliens, like, you know, who knows? Like, they can write the letter, you know, I guess. Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, that letter really, like, got to me. I was like, okay, like...
Yeah, like, what?
Yeah. Well, so just a few hours later, Leah says that she found out in the media some good news, at least on the surface anyways. They had found Shelly safe and sound. She wasn't missing at all, right? Case closed.
I mean, it's pretty convenient. It was a couple hours after she was asking that she finds out this information.
Yeah, well, and so maybe Leah is initially kind of relieved about this news, but evidently a little skeptical of it, because she calls up the detective who filed the missing persons report and asked if they had spoken to Shelly themselves, and they've responded saying that that information was, quote, classified.
I mean, you would like to think that if you filed a missing persons report and the person was found out to be okay, the detective would let you know. That's kind of like crazy to be told that it's classified.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine like you know, being so like the person who's close enough to the person, presumably, anyways, right? Who you know, is filing a missing persons, you know, worried about them enough to file a missing persons report. Like, you're not even going to tell them. Like, they don't even reach that level of classification.
Yeah, I mean, it makes you think too. It's like, we know that people in Hollywood and things like that are so connected to Scientology, but it's like, you know, who else did they have? What other institutions or organizations did they have kind of under their spell almost? You know, I don't know.
Well, you want to find out?
I would love to find out.
Okay. Well, Leah was told that if she wanted to know the information that she was asking for, that she would need to file public records requests. So she did. She spent $50,000 in attorney's fees, all to try and scratch at the surface of the question that she's been asking. Where's Shelly? But all of those public records requests were denied, and maybe that would come as a surprise to you, but it doesn't come as one to Leah. That's because she is well aware of the deep ties the church has with the Los Angeles Police Department, specifically with the unit Leah was dealing with at this point. In 2016, as Leah discussed on social media and in her docuseries on her experiences in Scientology, the captain of the police department is photographed accepting a $20,000 check as a donation from the church to the department. The church and officers have a pretty close connection. They would often hire off-duty officers as security guards, and the church would often donate to charities supporting the police department.
Yeah, so that was exactly what I was afraid you were going to say. And that's kind of what I've suspected all along, even since, you know, that first woman passed away, and then Shelly's mom, and gosh.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how do you defeat that? You know what I mean? It's like, and it's like, you know, you're clearly up against this cult like organization that, like, you know, pretty much, you know, without saying the words, like, next to openly admits that they brainwash people. And so then, you know, then you're trying to get the police department to investigate them. Like,
there's no winning. Yeah.
No winning. Yeah. So yeah, Leah was fighting an uphill battle, and, like, you know, I guess good for her for, like, you know, like realizing it, I suppose, because, like, you know, she'd clearly come to at this point. But man, yeah, that didn't feel right. So, yeah, I mean, Leah had no reason to believe that the department was going to be of any help to her in finding out where Shelly is. And that's when Leah writes a book and comes out with several docuseries with the sole mission of shining a light on the practices of the church and finally revealing where Shelly is for good. Right before an episode of Leah's docuseries was meant to air that would have focused solely on Shelly's disappearance, the church releases a statement calling Leah a, quote, foaming anti-Scientologist. The statement continues saying that Shelly had called Leah's repeated attempts at trying to contact her abusive. The church even calls for Leah to be prosecuted for knowingly filing a false missing persons report.
I mean, that's just insane. And it's just insane. And like the statement saying Shelly calls it abusive, as if anyone's going to believe that.
Yeah.
Well, Shelly wasn't part of that at all, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it just is odd. And like, again, like kind of what we're going back to before, like, you know, when they're like, yeah, prosecute her. It's like how scary is that? You know, I mean, I'm sure she like kind of knew that was what was going to come. But it's like, you know, you're up against, you know, like the people who are going to be doing that are the same people who are accepting money from them and like, you know, refuse and like not giving you any sort of information. And so, yeah, that's really scary.
Right.
But then also too, you know, kind of what you were saying before about like, you know, like all this stuff, like it feels like if she's asking all these questions, and like, you know, like just let Shelly answer for herself. Like if it's truly exactly what you're saying, that like she really just wants to be left alone and everything's fine. Okay, let us see Shelly. Like for 2 seconds, let us see Shelly, tell her to speak her piece, and then this whole thing goes away. And that's the end of your problem.
Exactly. Feels like an easy enough solution, you know, to an outsider looking in. You know, if you're so upset with Leah asking, let Shelly call her up on the phone, you know?
Yeah, right. And it's like, that would, like, again, like you said, like that would be the end of it. That would be, you know, and it's like,
that would be that.
Yeah, instead of like all these like written statements that like literally anybody on the internet could write, like they were like, if you look at them, they were like literally written on a Google Doc. And so it's like, okay, like I don't why do you expect me to believe that like this is actually what
exactly,
you know, especially when there's so much shadow around it to begin with, you know what I mean? It just it feels like, again, it feels like the most like the best, your best, you know, way to, you know, shut this whole thing down is just, you know, give them what they want for 2 seconds and then we'll be good.
Right it feels so easy, but
yeah. Well, so Leah is not the only person searching for Shelly either. Former members of the church are worried about her too at this point, and they have some theories as to where she may be. Former members of the church believe Shelly may be at a compound of the church's Spiritual Technology Corporation near San Bernardino, California. It's a remote forest compound with prison-like security. Now, based on what we know about Shelly's case, it's really unclear whether she is living there voluntarily or is being held against her will, again, according to these former members' theories. We don't know a whole lot about this compound, but an anti-Scientology protester is known to be a bit of a nuisance to the church and actually showed up several times with cameras asking questions about where Shelly is. His name is, yes, the Angry Gay Pope. Laugh about it for a second, come back to me. And he has posted dozens of pictures and videos of this compound and his interactions with the people who work here. And so, Kira, I'm going to send you some pictures of what he posted of the compound. Okay, yeah, if you go to like kind of like the middle, there should be like a little thing that says like outward facing ultra barrier is what it's called.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so if you open those, you'll see, like, you see the fence?
Yeah, with the spikes.
Yeah, so what do you think of that?
I mean, it's like one of those things you're questioning, are they trying to keep people out or trying to keep people in type of thing?
Yeah, so that's exactly the, you know, question that, you know, a lot of people raise about this whole thing. So, like, basically, just to kind of describe it for everyone listening, and, like, you can go, like, we're going to link this on our website too, so you can see this for yourself. But this is kind of, like, odd. Like, it's a very normal metal, you know, fence, you know, with, like, you know, it looks like actually maybe even the top of, and correct me if you think, if you disagree with this, Kira, but, like, the top of the fences look like they may have been like shaved or like, you know, filed down or melted or somehow into spikes themselves.
Yeah, actually, I agree with you. That's such a good call. It does look like they were kind of like melted or something like that. Like kind of.
Like that's not like the normal shape, so that is kind of odd. But then, like at the base of that, like there's like a little bar that goes across, like maybe like a foot down from the top of these spikes, and resting on top of those are these little spikes that come out, and they're facing kind of like what Kira was kind of talking about before, facing into the compound. So like, you know, typically you think of like fences as keeping stuff out, you know, animals, intruders, that kind of thing. But like this is, you know, there's not even spikes going to the outside. There's only spikes going, you know, facing inside toward the compound.
Yeah.
So, like you said, like, are they trying to keep people out of the compound, or are they trying to keep people from escaping the compound?
Right. It's just, some of these are just so jarring. I mean, the front gate lady behind bulletproof glass, like, why? You know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, and I would imagine that, like, again, at this point, especially, I mean, probably this guy alone is probably like, what's it called? It's like, you know, threatened this place a couple times, but yeah, so I'm sure that there are like security, you know, concerns, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, it looks like a little campground, but then like this like high security, like it looks like camp. You know what I mean? Like log cabins,
right?
But then,
crazy,
you know, there are these like spike fences, and it's like, okay. And there's like this giant propane tank.
Oh yeah, giant propane tank for use after World War II. What?
Yeah, and like that's definitely him like editorializing. I like can't imagine that he knows a lot about propane tanks. But like it's still like an odd thing, because it's like, why do you need that much propane?
It's like very like end of the world-y.
Yeah, right, exactly. And it's like so that way you never have to go get gas ever again. Nobody ever has to come onto the property to give you gas again. Probably at least for the next like 10 years or whatever. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
oh my goodness.
Yeah, you know, again, assuming that they're using it for just like, you know, regular operations. But yeah, like you said, that looks like it's like, okay, if the world ends and we can't get gas anymore, like we'll have like a 10-year supply of it. Like we'll be fine.
Right. Oh my goodness. Crazy. These are so spooky to look at.
It is. Yeah. And like, again, like just for this tank again too, like, you know, this is like, just for people listening, like this is literally what like you see people like, or what you see like tractor trailers, like, you know, like riding around in, like in terms of size, you know what I mean? So like just picture that. And like, it's literally just for this one compound. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So, you know, Shelly has 4 or 5 beagles with David, and friends and family of theirs say Shelly loved those dogs so much, and they are actually still living at their home. So they make the argument that that is evidence enough to suggest that Shelly is not living in this compound voluntarily if she is indeed living there. Others believe, though, that she may be being held at a much more dangerous location. Former members have also said that they believe she may be living at what's called the Hole. It's a prison facility about an hour south of the compound that we were just talking about. Now, this isn't a typical prison, right? It's a Scientology prison known to be used for defectors and people who commit crimes against the church. The Tampa Bay Times described the facility as having degrading conditions and harsh punishments where members intimidate each other by forcing each other to confess to things that they have not done.
I mean, it's crazy to think that, you know, people are speculating that Shelly is there. Meanwhile, she's the wife of the leader of the church. You know, is no one safe from this type of treatment and stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I guess not. But also, you know, think back to like what was happening right before this, where she was kind of rebelling a little bit, you know, like you know, doing things on her own, like against her husband's wishes kind of thing. So it's like maybe she was defecting, you know, a little bit, you know? I mean, that sounds right, I suppose. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just so scary. I mean, to have a prison, you know, for a religion, it just feels so crazy. I don't even know what other word to use to describe it.
Yeah.
This is just all so insane.
Well, yeah, and so this is all, kind of like, secondhand kind of knowledge. Like it's all like former members and that kind of thing. But like it was published by, again, the Tampa Bay Times. So it's like, I put a little bit of credit into that from that perspective, a little bit more so than, the Anchor Gay Pope, like, Tampa Bay Times, it's Anchor Gay Pope,
Right.
Yeah. So, but like still, like, I don't know. It's just, it's all very odd. And it's, mixed in with the fact of like, okay, well, where is Shelly? And like, nobody is really saying where Shelly is and we haven't really heard from her.
Yeah.
So.
And it's like also too, like, how you were saying, like a lot of it is not hearsay, but like not speculation. It's not, totally confirmed, but it's like some of this stuff is so crazy. It's like, how could it even be made up, like
yeah, so true.
You know what I mean? Like there has to be some truth to a lot of this if, it's not totally verified.
Well, and like why? Like why would it be made up? Like that's a great point.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think there is exactly one person who could probably tell us where Shelly is and probably has the means to end this mystery once and for all. And that person is none other than David Miscavige. But there are two problems with that. One, he clearly does not have any interest in ending this big charade if that's how people want to think about this. I mean, he could have talked about this years ago and like, put this all to bed. Clearly he's not interested in doing that. And two, David himself has been missing for years.
What do you mean?
Well, so remember when I told you about the supposed children's servants on the Freewinds, that cruise ship?
Yeah.
Well, they ended up suing the church and David for their alleged actions. 3 former members said they were forced into the church as kids and worked into adulthood with almost no pay. They worked on the boat and were forced to sign a contract to work for the church for 1 billion years. They said their working conditions were horrible, citing abuse and poor living situations, and tried to leave the church several times and evidently were eventually successful as adults. The Tampa Bay Times reported that service agents tried to serve David with the lawsuit several times in California and also in Florida, but they were unable to. Former members believe that David did what Ron did when he came under legal pressure toward the end of his tenure as leader. He supposedly locked himself in a home in Northern California, surrounded by security until he died, or at least until the church was able to convince the world that he did.
Whoa. So people are under the understanding that he is perhaps deceased or is definitely deceased or he's just in hiding. Like, whoa.
I don't know, Kira. Yeah, I mean, your guess is probably as good as mine.
Wow.
It sounds like maybe kind of like maybe a little bit of both, like, maybe, hiding out somewhere. Maybe with Shelly, and be surrounded by a bunch of security guards.
Right.
It's possible. And just kind of like waiting out his death because like he knows his kind of like his power has waned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, consider that.
Yeah.
But like also like, so it makes me like, that's when like my mind kind of went with like what we were talking about before about Ron, where I was like, okay, like if this is like, cause when I read this, I was like, wait, so like nobody really knows for sure if he's dead. Like that's kind of what the way I'm reading into this with Ron. And so
yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, what if he did kind of just like live out the remainder of his life? You know what I mean? Like somewhere and like, and then eventually they're just like, yep, he's dead. Like, so that way we can like move on with our church. But like really he was just like chilling in the basement.
Yeah. I mean, we saw in those photos, they clearly have the means to keep people extremely hidden. So I feel like anything is so possible.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so frustrating because I just know we're never going to know exactly the answers to all our questions, and it's going to keep you up at night.
No, I know. And listen, I hear you all, moaning and groaning, listening to this episode because you hate when I leave you on a cliffhanger, but like get used to it because like we're never going to know what the heck's going to happen here. So man, yeah, it's so frustrating too because it feels like there's like such a small group of people that know all the questions that we have, and I'm like, just tell us, write a book, I'll read it.
Right. I've even wondered, I mean, I think what Leah Remini has done is like just so brave, and I really I think I can't imagine what she's gone through, but even her, it's like, what else does she know that she's just too afraid to say for like fear of her life,
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, because she never like really. I mean, again, I didn't watch the entire docuseries, did not read the book, but like it seems like like she's clearly alluding to something with Ron. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay,
Right.
well, maybe like, so point being is like, so if she's alluding to that, then like maybe there are other things, like other secrets that she does know that we will simply never know about. Yeah.
Right.
Ugh. Gives me chills.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so Shelly's disappearance has been gaining steam over the last few years, especially in Hollywood. It's been mostly sparked by the release of Leah's docuseries, like we were just talking about. Just this past January, several celebrities spoke at the Golden Globes and ended their speech with the question that we're all asking. Where's Shelly? Now, I had to ask the question and dive into this theory as well. Is Shelly Miscavige dead? Well, there isn't any evidence to suggest that is true at all, but is it a possibility? Sure, but there have been some, kind of speculative reported sightings of her over the last few years, but nothing super concrete. So I guess I'm just wondering, Kira, what do you think about that theory? Like, do you think that Shelly could just be dead and like we're all just kind of, waiting for that?
I mean, I want so badly for her to be alive, obviously. I would be so curious to know like who has spotted her. Is it people that are involved saying, oh, I've seen her, or is it people from the outside that are like, oh, I saw her?
So from what I've been able to gather, it's mostly just like internet sleuths kind of thing, so like take that.
Okay, yeah, it would be crazy to think that a person that so many people are desperate to find could stay hidden for so long, which would like sadly lead me to think like maybe she has been dead for years.
Yeah,
which I just don't want that to be the truth, obviously, but it's just crazy.
Yeah, and like there's no evidence to it at all, like I said, but I think that is the only logical explanation as to like why like nobody's making her available.
Right. No, it's crazy. Like we said like so much earlier, there could be such an easy solution to this.
Yeah.
Like just show us Shelly,
Show us Shelly. Well,
let us see her.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we'll probably never know what happened with Shelly. I'm so sorry for listening to this whole episode thinking that we were going to tell you, exactly what happened and it was going to be a huge, like, miraculous moment. You were wrong. I wish I had that moment too, but nope, we're not going to do that. But, tell us what you think. Go on Facebook, go on our Instagram page, go on our Twitter pages, and write us in. Tell us what you actually think happened. Give us your thoughts, give us your feelings. And with that being said, that is all that we have for you this week. So, Kira, thank you so much for coming on and talking about this case with us. It was great seeing you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me. It's like always been a dream to be on a podcast, but the opportunity has clearly just never presented itself. So I'm so happy to do this with you. I'm so proud of you. Like this podcast you have going is so great in so many ways, in every way. So I'm so happy for you.
Just like in high school, when I made your dreams come true at prom, I make your dreams come true right here to like make your podcast dreams come true. So, but seriously, I
love that for me.
Seriously, thank you so much for doing this, and it was absolute pleasure having you on and just talking with you, like chit-chatting. So,
of course, thank you for having me.
Well, tell everyone where they can find you and your work online if you'd like to.
You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, as previously discussed at the beginning of the episode. I'm Cbrez8. It's mostly just silliness, but if anyone wanted to connect about public service, working in government, New York State government specifically, totally add me on LinkedIn, Kira Breslin, Ciara Breslin. I'd love to connect.
Well, thank you again so much for coming on this week, Kira, and thank you all so much for listening. We are going to put all of our sources on our website so you can read everything for yourself and probably come up with a few theories too. And if you are enjoying this podcast and are just wondering how you can tell anyone and everyone about it, the best way to help people find this podcast is by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you are listening right now. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and we will see you next week for another episode of Crime Over Wine.
Proud member of the Podnuga Network. How to have fun anytime, anywhere. Step 1. Go to ChumbaCasino.com.
ChumbaCasino.com. Got it.
Step 2. Collect your welcome bonus.
Come to Papa welcome bonus.
Step 3. Play hundreds of casino-style games for free.
That's a lot of games. All for free?
Step 4. Unleash your excitement.
Woohoo!
Chumba Casino has been delivering thrills for over a decade. So claim your free welcome bonus now and live the Chumba life. Visit ChumbaCasino.com.